The cost of being misunderstood is obvious. You get the looks, you get the exclusion, you lose opportunities. People are not willing to hear you out. They are not willing to understand you. Perhaps they are not able to. For many, this is a cause for panic. Who are you without the acceptance of the herd? What can you do without status, without approval, without help? And the fear makes sense. It's ancient. For most of human history, exclusion was not merely uncomfortable. It was dangerous. To lose the group was to lose protection, resources, and access to the people you depended on. We still carry this fear, even though the circumstances have changed. Today, rejection rarely threatens your survival. But your body does not always understand this. It still responds to exclusion as though something essential is being taken from you. This is why a look can disturb you for hours. Why being left out can make you question your entire life. Why the disapproval of people you do not respect can still make you doubt yourself. And because the danger feels real, most people begin adapting themselves long before anyone explicitly asks them to. They soften what they believe. They hide what they want. They remove the parts of themselves that make other people uncomfortable. They learn which ambitions earn admiration and which ones create concern. They learn which opinions invite approval and which ones create distance. They begin presenting themselves in language other people can accept. At first, the changes seem small. You stop mentioning the thing you are working on. You describe your ambition as a hobby, so no one can accuse you of taking yourself too seriously. You laugh when someone dismisses what matters to you. You call your conviction curiosity. You call your desire unrealistic before anyone else gets the chance. You reject yourself in advance. And every small act of self-rejection appears harmless. It keeps the conversation comfortable. It prevents embarrassment. It allows you to remain included. Slowly, you become easier to understand, easier to accept, easier to keep around. But there is a cost to being understood too. To be understood by everyone, you must become familiar to everyone. You must speak in ways they already recognize, want things they already value, follow paths they already consider legitimate. You must translate yourself into terms the herd can approve of. And some things cannot survive that translation. A strange ambition will sound irresponsible. A deep conviction will sound excessive. A life organized around different values will appear irrational to anyone who has never questioned the values they inherited. The more unusual your path, the fewer people will be able to recognize it as a path at all. They will call it confusion, delusion, arrogance, a phase. They may care about you deeply and still be incapable of seeing what you see. Not because they are cruel, but because people understand the world through the limits of their own experience. They can only recognize possibilities they have permitted themselves to consider. They can only validate sacrifices they would be willing to make. And your choices do not merely reveal something about you, they can also threaten something in them. Your refusal may make them question what they accepted. Your courage may expose where they surrendered. Your discipline may reveal the excuses they have protected. Your freedom may remind them of the life they postponed. It is easier to call you foolish than to wonder whether they were afraid. It is easier to call you arrogant than to consider whether they abandoned something important. So they misunderstand you. Sometimes accidentally, sometimes because they have to, and sometimes because understanding you would require them to understand themselves. This is why explanation so often fails. You believe that if you find the right words, people will finally see. You clarify your motives. You defend your decisions. You explain where you're going and why it matters. But misunderstanding is not always caused by a lack of information. Sometimes the other person understands perfectly well. What they cannot accept is what your choice implies. They understand that you no longer want what they want. They understand that you are questioning something they built their life around. They understand that you are willing to disappoint them. What they call confusion may actually be resistance. And no amount of explanation can resolve resistance disguised as misunderstanding. This does not mean that everyone who questions you is wrong. Being misunderstood is not proof that you're profound. Rejection is not proof that you're right. Some people are misunderstood because they are dishonest, confused, or unwilling to listen. The point is not to worship opposition. The point is to stop treating agreement as evidence. The hurt can reject what is true. It can also celebrate what is false. Approval tells you that you are understandable within a particular system. It does not tell you whether that system is worth belonging to. And yet most people spend their lives trying to be understood by people whose life they would never choose. They want their ambitions understood by people who abandoned their own. They want their values affirmed by people who have never examined theirs. They want permission to live differently from people who are terrified of difference. This is the hidden cost of being understood. You may have to become someone explainable, someone predictable, someone who makes sense according to the fear of others. Someone whose dreams are small enough not to disturb the room. You may earn acceptance. You may remain invited. You may avoid the looks, the questions, and the silence. But it may cost you the very thing you wanted acceptance for, your life. This cost rarely arrives all at once. It arrives through reasonable compromises. You choose the safer language. You delay the decision. You reduce your ambition. You keep one foot in your old life so no one feels threatened by the new one. You promise yourself that you will become honest later, when you have more proof, when your choices are easier to defend, when no one can question you anymore. But that moment rarely comes. And while you are waiting to become undeniable, you may become unrecognizable to yourself. There are parts of you that will only survive if you stop demanding that everyone understands them. Some ambitions need protection before they need exposure. Some convictions become weaker when repeatedly defended to people committed to misunderstanding them. Some truths become distorted when you force them into language designed for approval. You do not owe everyone an explanation, and you do not need to make your life appear reasonable to people who are living by values you want to reject. At some point, you must accept that people will disagree. They will reduce your reasons to explanations they can understand. They will tell stories about your choices that protect their own. You may never correct every version. You may never be seen exactly as you see yourself. That is part of the price of becoming your own person. You lose some control over how you are perceived, But the alternative is worse. Because when you abandon what you know in order to remain acceptable, you begin misunderstanding yourself. You call your fear maturity. You call your surrender patience. You call your avoidance responsibility. You repeat the explanations that earned approval until you forgot what they were designed to conceal. And this may be the greatest cost of being misunderstood. Not that people finally recognize you, but that you no longer recognize yourself. You cannot spend your life trying to escape the hurt while making sure the hurt approves of how you do it. At some point, you must choose. You can continue making yourself understandable to everyone, or you can stop making their understanding a condition of your honesty. Sincerely, Milo Morrison.